sweltering hot today. It's going to be in the high 90s to low hundreds all this week, and humid too. So I'm trying to get yards worked early, going through these nukes, and I'm pulling out some undrawn frames and giving them some drawn comb as long as they show promise. This one up here was in good shape, but they needed a boost, so I pulled a frame of emerging brood out of that hive and gave to them, fed both of them. Gave this one like 5 frames of comb, gave this one 2 or 3, gave this one a couple. Got to this one, I opened the lid. Their feeder had dead bees and hive beetles in it. It was fermented and they had not taken their syrup. That's a warning sign, and they're not growing. So I immediately thought, well, are they queen right? That looks like a drone layer to me, or laying worker. They're grumpy. So I've got another loss on my hands. I've got an emergency cell up here. Nothing about this looks right. So this hive's not going to be viable. We'll shake them out, stack the equipment, reuse it, give it to some other hives, let the bees, the field bees, they'll probably go to this hive. That's the closest one. So they'll just strengthen that one up. More attrition. And here's why we always want to check the undersides of the lids. Make sure your queen's not on there. I could have accidentally dumped her off in the grass. There you go, girl. So I just popped that hive open. They don't have enough population for this many boxes. They're light. Got into the second box. That sound you're hearing is usually the queenless roar. So I think I've got a queenless hive here. I'll dig into it and check and make sure. Because sometimes during the dearth they will shut down, and sometimes smoke or stress or anything can make them do this, but it's usually queenless. Anyway, it's a good indication there's a problem and you need to look further. So I went through this colony, found no brood, no eggs, no nothing. I think they're indeed queenless. And I had a very small nuke that was a swarm that I caught over here. So I went through, found the queen, and caged her. I don't have any candy cages with me, so I just taped over the entrance to the JZBZ. That will protect her. Of course, all these bees here are loyal to her, but all the other ones in this hive are not. So after 4, 5, 6 days, I'll come back and release her, and then all those bees will drift, hopefully to this hive, but maybe back to that one. And I'll probably set an escape board under this and force all those bees to go back into here. Should work out pretty good. 9:45 in the morning. It's 83 degrees, feels like 92. It's gonna be high 90s to low hundreds all week. Sweltering. So that queenless hive that I just showed you in the fix with the nuke, hopefully that'll fix it. You know, most of those will work out. That's pretty safe. When you take a nuke that's got brood of all ages and a laying queen, and you cage the queen and put her into her own nuke, and then put that nuke into a queenless hive, generally that's gonna fix it. That's about as safe a requeening technique as there is. there's always risk of rejection and risk of supersedure and all that, but that's about as safe as it gets. So that's the value of having a Nuke battery. So Ian Stepler talks about the Nuke battery. I think Chris Werner runs something similar. And that's basically where you've got a goal for a number of production colonies. Say it's, for me, it's going to be probably 200 to 250. I think that's the minimum viable full-time career number. Should be close to it anyway with everything else I'm doing too. And that means that I need 60 or 75 nukes. About 30% of your operation, your production colonies, you keep in nukes. Make those every year. So the way I envision this Nuke battery system, or my system working, is I come into spring with about 200 colonies, good strong production colonies, and I use equalizing and then splitting and making nukes as a swarm relief technique. And I do as much of that as is necessary to relieve swarming and go into our main flow with strong hives, but no swarming pressure, minimal swarming pressure. And that means I may make 100 nukes. I may make 150, who knows? This year I took 40 colonies to 130. So you can make a lot of nukes if you want to. I don't think I need to make that many if I'm still trying to make a honey crop just to relieve the swarming pressure, especially if I manage my queen age. So say you go from 200 to 300 or even 350. Well, my goal coming into fall is to be at about 260, 275. And that's including the nukes. And that means that you've got some nukes to sell. So you just sell down whatever you made. Some springs are better than others. You sell down to that magic number, whatever it might be, which is your production colonies plus 30%. And then that 30% nuke battery allows you to requeen colonies. It allows you to refresh non-productive units, failing units. All this queen attrition I've gotten in June, July, August, all these losses I've had. If I had my goal on production numbers plus my nuke battery, I think I'd be fine right now. But the dwindle is hurting me, especially because I'm trying to fight and nurse small colonies and do everything I can to keep my numbers up, because I don't have that. I don't have my production colony numbers, and I don't have a nuke battery. So I need a lot more bees before I will be able to comfortably manage a business and be sustainable long term. So that's got me thinking even more about buying in colonies this fall. That's got the potential to put me into a viable business next year instead of the year after, instead of having 2 growth years in a row. It's a cash flow issue. Five in the morning. I've been up since about 4:15, getting these last round of nukes loaded. I got to get them moved out to real yards and get them on real hive stands up on blocks. Get them with other bees so I can start equalizing into them and just take better care of them. They said this yard is not easy enough to get to. I'm going to change what I'm doing here next year. So I'm going to get these girls buckled down and get going. It'll start getting daylight in about 30 minutes, and I need to drop them off in 2 different places. So I got to get moving. So I got these small nukes moved early this morning. I was going to fill this yard out to 24. Of course, one of them turned out to be a dud. It had been robbed out. I didn't notice the weight difference. That's frustrating. Some of them are in pretty good shape. Some of them are very small. So I've got the entrances on basically all of them narrowed down a lot. I put entrance reducers in, staple them down, so it's 6 inches by 3/8, and then you just set a stick or something in front. A 2x2 works really good. A section of 2x2 works good. I boosted a few of them. This one got a boost. I had 2 down here that had a boost. I don't know if this one, the second from the end, is going to make it or not. I went in and found the queen and caged her because they just had a handful of bees in there. They had a lot of hive beetles. I caged the queen and put 2 frames of brood in there. One emerging frame of brood, and then another one had some emerging, some younger stuff on it. I don't know if they'll make it or not, but I've got a mated queen there, so I really want to get them going if I can. So my experience this year is informing what I'm going to do next year. You learn from your successes and your failures. And what I'm going to change for next year is I'm going to try to make all of the nukes that I need in March, April, and May, and be done with it by the end of May. Got a European hornet over here. I'm trying to get some of my bees. If I catch him, he's going to get a hive tool. Really hope those yellow-legged hornets don't get established in Georgia, because they'll be up here before long. Goodness, the bees have got so many things to fight. They got so many stressors. We don't need anything else. It's already hard enough. We don't need anything to make it any harder. So I let these nukes settle in overnight. I came in this morning and leveled them. Got oil trays under all of them. I don't really like using oil trays. They're a lot of hassle. I've got to level the hives out or all the oil runs out. So I've got packs of door shims and have to go through with a level application on my phone. And it's a lot of tedious work. I like the bottom boards on big hives because with a coroplast blocker, I can monitor mite levels very easily with oxalic acid. And I like on these small nukes, I've got the ability to add an oil tray, even though I don't like doing it. Those beetles are left in from when I put this tray in when they were in the mating yard. It's amazing. Amazing infestation rate. Some of them I just now put in. I just put this one in. They didn't have one. Another one dead. Knock you down in there too. There's another one. Dead beetles. It's the only good hive beetle is a dead one. There's another one. Goodness. I hate those things. Looks like this one isn't leveled out all that good. Still catching beetles though. Hopefully by equalizing into these with some emerging brood frames from some of my strong hives and with oil trays to remove some pest pressure and plenty of feed, I can get them to grow enough to make it through winter. If they don't grow enough to make it through winter, like get into 2 mediums or at least one really full single, then I'll probably have to move them to another yard to reorient, and I'll set a double screen board on top of a strong colony and put them on top of another colony. to act as a heater. And hopefully I'll be able to nurse them through winter like that and then pull them off when it starts warming up in the spring. I don't want to do that though, it's extra work. I don't want to do it unless I have to. I'd rather them just get strong enough to make it. We'll see. I'm doing about everything I can do right now. You know, I can't feed pollen patty. That just makes hive beetles worse. So this is about all I can do. This is my worst Varroa count hive. This is a cumulative drop on 2 doses of oxalic acid. I think we're into the thousands category now on this hive. I'm guessing that they robbed out a failing colony somewhere and just brought all these Varroa home. You can see them really good there. I'm gonna dig into them just a little bit and just see what the condition of the hive looks like. Clean this out first because I'm gonna do another treatment today. I wanna see what the drop looks like after this. Well, so far they don't look too bad. They've actually got a population. These look pretty bright and clean. I don't see any deformed wing. We'll take a look at some brood in here. Now this is interesting. I just realized this is a hive that I used as a cell builder twice this year, and they did a really good job making queens. But now they've got this tremendously high mite population. I pull out a brood frame. It doesn't look that bad for this time of year. And you can see they've got uncap recap behavior going on. And if I can show you this, hopefully. That cell right there has a pupa that they're chewing out, which is either hygienic behavior or Varroa sensitive hygienic behavior. So there's a good chance this hive has actually got resistance to mites. They've just got a tremendous mite population. There's more uncap recap over here. That is interesting. I bet they've just pulled in a mite bomb. Uncap recap over here. Quite a bit of it, all in this spot. More of it here. They're trying to open that up. Interesting. A lot of excitement in the air, not the good kind. I rolled in here this morning. I'm gonna treat these hives with oxalic acid, and I wanted to check on these little nukes that I moved in. Put oil trays under them a couple of days ago. See some bees have found their way in there, but also a lot of mites. This hive was trying to abscond. They were all clustered on the outside. I found my marked queen on the outside of the hive, stuck her in a queen cage, put her back in the hive, pulled their brood frames out, which had hive beetles all in them, larvae getting started. Gave them a frame of emerging brood and bees from another hive. It's a tremendous amount of beetles. See if I can get them restarted. It's awful late in the year for this. Bunch of bees, bunch of beetles too. As the oil trays go, the Freemans are by far the best. Take a look at one of them. This one has not been cleaned out in a long time. This is a hive I got from down the road. But those Freemans, they lock in really well. And bees can't get in them near as easily. But if you don't clean them out, you get hive beetles actually living in the debris. Makes a huge mess. So I don't like those that well. I prefer chloroplast blockers most of the time. And then if you want to use an oil tray, you can. Even though it doesn't fit as tight, you can catch some bees. Boy, look at all the beetles there. Of course, I just spilled a few cents worth of oil. Oh, goodness. August beekeeping is not that fun. I just cleaned that tray out that had all the hive beetle larvae in it. Might be the most satisfying thing I do all day. That's burning because of the wax remnants. Of course, we're ground soaked with dew, so I'm not real worried about it spreading. So let's check out this really high mite hive. This is 24 hours after oxalic acid. This would be the third treatment they've gotten with oxalic. See, there's a mite, there's a mite. Still not good, but it's a whole lot better than it was before. I think we'll be able to get them saved. So when I started beekeeping, I trapped a bunch of swarms. First couple of years, that's where most of my seed stock came from. And these were feral bees that came from original Russian stock, Russian crosses, that some local, some friends of mine, neighbors, had. And these bees were feral for like 5 years before I started trapping them. So I think I've got mite resistance locked into my population here. I am seeing uncap recap behavior in a lot of hives right now. We've got elevated mite levels, it being late August. I'm also seeing bees chewing out brood, which could be a hygienic or varroa sensitive hygienic behavior, and seeing quite a bit of that. So I think I've got some mite resistance in my population, and I'm trying to refine that. I've got 4 drone flooding yards available to my mating yard. And I'm bringing in some VSH stock to try to add that and reinforce it. And then shooting all my hives with OAV gives me a quick and dirty mite count on every hive. High mite hives go to out yards where they can't cross with my mating yard. And over time, I think I can refine that somewhat. But I think I really need a second tier testing mechanism where I use the first tier to, cull out the bad hives. And of course, I'm culling out feisty hives, hives that are non-productive, that don't have the characteristics I'm looking for. But I need a second tier testing mechanism, either a Harbo assay or preferably UBO. I'd love to do UBO next spring. because I'm running this IPM framework where high mite hives are going to get treated, even if they have resistance. You know, they're going to get treated, and you need a mite presence to do an accurate Harbo assay. So with UBO, I think that would make a lot of sense to do UBO in March on 10 or 20 hives and pick my breeders from that. And I think that'll really help me drill down in the next 2 or 3 years the bees I'm looking for. I'm glad I put heavy duty leaf springs under my truck this year. Got a tank of syrup in the back. I don't know how much is in it, maybe a third or a half, plus 1,000 pounds of sugar I just picked up at a local grocery store. So I went a couple weeks ago to 2 different Walmarts in 2 different cities nearby looking for sugar. I only deal in the 25-pound bags. I would deal in 50s if I could find them, but I can't. I don't mess with the 10s or the 4s. It just gets tedious and too much of a workload to, you know, try to make a quantity of syrup at a time using those bags. So anyway, I found 15 bags at one store, which is, you know, pretty decent. About the most I ever find is 17. So then I went to another store to really stock up. They had 2 bags on the shelf. That was it. I was like, goodness, I'm wasting $20 in fuel to go pick up 2 bags of sugar. And that caused me to call a local grocery store. I've tried with Walmart to get them to do a bulk order. I went to one of the smaller local Walmarts because I thought they'd be more inclined to work with me, and they were. The grocery manager was very nice, and she tried to order 1,000 pounds of sugar for me. She said since COVID, home office didn't let them do that anymore. She didn't know it, but they wouldn't let her do it. So then I talked to a local grocery store, and of course they've got a higher price on it. You know, they're picking it up from a grocery wholesaler in, I don't know which one, in Nashville, but they got me 1,000 pounds. It's 75 cents a pound, which is 9 cents a pound more than I'm paying at Walmart, but $90 on 1,000 pounds. I figure the time and the fuel it takes to drive to enough stores to pick up this much in one go, and just the convenience factor is worth it for me. I suspect this will be enough to get me through my fall feeding and into winter, and then I won't have to worry about sugar again until spring. Especially if we get any kind of a fall flow, which I suspect we will this year, because we had a dry spring, but we were really wet in July, and we've been wet through August. So, you know, generally from what I've heard, July and August rain determines your fall flow on asters and goldenrod. So I'm hopeful that the bees will get heavy on the natural stuff leading into winter, and that will reduce my feed bill some. But I've got a bunch of nukes that are going to need help. So overall, this has been a pretty eventful week. It's been kind of a slow week though. I've sweated through my clothes by 10 o'clock every morning this week, and I've kind of done desk work and stuff in the afternoons because it's just been so hot. Heat index has been way over 100. I picked up a new customer today. This comes off of a tip from my friend Jim Hartman at Secret Garden Bees. Appreciate that. I'm gonna have a deal with a local food bank, and it's a monthly allocation basically, and it's a considerable amount of cash flow for me anyway. It's like 14 cases a month. So that's big enough to make a difference in the bottom line for me. That's a big deal. So just found out about that. I've been working on that for a couple of weeks. So I'm happy about that. And upward and onward. I just got a Pick Tennessee designation So I applied for that, and I feel like I'm making progress and moving forward now. Next big thing is to get through my permitting process on the honey house, and then try to start going after some groceries. I think I'll have all my ducks in a row where I can start doing that. And man, it'll be nice to have some regular, dependable cash flow. That's what businesses run on. So that'll be good. I had a question from Greg Gilday a while back asking about plastic frames and foundations. He said that, I see that you use some acorn, but you've got a lot of wooden frames and foundations. Why don't you use more of the acorn? And I have trialed Peerco and acorn frames and foundations this year, and I have found that the bees draw both of them out very well. But they don't work as good in my honey extractor. Wood frames work really well in my honey extractor. And also, on all of the plastic frames that I have, there is some sort of a bee space difference. And I get more burr comb, where the bees glue the top of the bottom frame to the box above it. I get more burr comb, more ladder comb, whatever you want to call it, on plastic frames than I ever do on Man Lake wooden frames. So, in February of this year, I think it was February of this year, Man Lake contacted me with a sale that they had. They have reps that call some of the customers that order a lot from them, and they had a really good deal on assembled wooden frames with foundations. And if they offer that kind of a deal again, I may just do that. I don't think I'm going to do unassembled wooden frames and foundations. I can do the math, and it pays me $60 or $62 an hour or something like that to assemble those over the regular price. But if I get the assembled frames at a discounted price, then I get my favorite frames at a good price. I really do like those Man Lake wood frames. And there's more than one thing that I like about them. It's not just the bee space and the fact that they work well in my honey house. I know they're not as durable as a plastic frame. They're just not. But you can also tell how old the frame is because the wood ages. It's not just the comb. If you've got black plastic foundation like acorn and Peerco, and you get black plastic foundation on the wood frames too, then the comb can look old even if it's just a few years old. But with those wooden frames, you can tell if the frame is old or not. And you want to cycle out of, if you're doing nukes, you want to cycle out your older frames into the nukes and get them out of your operation. If you've got a really old frame, you may just cull it. It's hard to tell how old those things are if you've got all plastic stuff. So my preference is on the wood with plastic foundation, Man Lake wood frames with plastic foundation. I like the bee space. I like the fact I can tell how old they are just by looking at them. I like the way they run through my honey house. But I'm about over the increased workload and trying to save the little bit of extra money of doing unassembled frames all myself. I've just got, I call it one more thing syndrome. I've got always just this one more thing I need to do. Just this one more thing I need to do. I've been smallmouth fishing like once this year, and I like to smallmouth fish. In September and October and November, I'd really like to do some smallmouth fishing. I don't know that I will because I'm always so busy because of one more thing syndrome. So I need to learn to take things off my plate where I can. And saving money's great, but at some point it's better to just pay it and not have to have the workload. Guys, I'm always looking for questions for my QA. If you've got any, you can email me info@duckriverhoney.com. I have people email me stuff on, I had somebody email me advice on a honey house for his little operation, or no, I won't say little operation, growing operation. Little has a bad connotation. I don't want to sound like that. He's got like 30 hives and may want to go to 60 or something. He's gonna need a honey house. So I was giving him some advice on that. I enjoy talking to you guys about stuff like that. I really do. I appreciate the camaraderie, I guess. So if you've got questions, you can email me. You can leave them in the comments below, and I try to answer just about everything I get sent. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next one.